Welcome to episode 2.99 of the Fink Tank. I'm your host, Vincent Fink, and today I want to talk to you about the failing energy grid, not just of Texas, but, we're having problems all around. Hey, but this just in from the Epoch Times, U.S. edition, July 13th through 19th, 2022. Get a load of that. This is your legacy here. Lockdowns damaged speech and mental development of children. The pandemic impact. And a little subheading there. Teachers say most children are now 2 years behind developmentally. Toddlers are taking longer to speak. This is all because of the COVID restrictions. Yeah, so there you go, guys. That's your policies there. And we are officially now, we are living in the dumbest time in recent history. Thanks to the people who support these measures. As if public schools weren't failing us enough already, right? I mean, IQ levels were already dropping. Excellent work, guys. Okay, so moving on to the major topic of the day. A lot of people right now, we're in Texas, Houston. Man, it's hot out there. I mean, I don't know if you ever go outside for longer than just walking to your car, but I do some gardening, so I'm out there a bit, and I enjoy it actually. But I have a little bit of shady tree area here and there. But it's hot. But it's always hot in Texas summer. I've seen people comparing for Dallas, and there's basically every year it's pretty average. It's not very off. It's not very hot. It's actually very average. So far, that's what I've seen. Now, how the rest of the summer pans out remains to be seen. Here in Houston, it definitely feels a bit hotter. We've had less rain, so that's a problem, obviously, when it's hot out. And also, we've got more and more concrete being poured all over the place all the time. So people need to take some of these things into account as well. Like, you're living in an area that is becoming, to use your own terminology, a greenhouse, right? You're like reflecting and collecting heat. So, in all the wrong ways. So that probably has a lot to do with why it feels so hot, though, is what I'm getting at. This also is why it floods so much here in Houston, because we have all this concrete and, nobody's managing this infrastructure correctly, and thus we are suffering as a people, because the people in charge, of the fourth largest state in America, have their heads up their ass and can't figure out how to get a drainage system working. For overflow water when it rains and floods, which is becoming more and more frequent. The freeze of last year, that was some more extreme weather. So I mean, yeah, climate change is happening. It's pretty obvious. Climate always changes. See, that's the thing about the Earth, is that the climate has always changed. It's never stayed the same. It's actually been abnormally stable for the past several decades. To 100 years or so, whatever. It's been a while that it's actually gone through a noticeable shift, and that is odd because it's always shifting, and it really doesn't matter what we do. We have a minuscule effect. Sure, we have an effect, but in the greater scheme of the larger system, we're pretty tiny, and what we do is pretty tiny. And in fact, CO2 is not the enemy. It's plant food. It's plant air, rather. I can't believe that we have to remind people about grade school science, but CO2 is what makes the world green, which makes plants happy and breathe, so then we can breathe, and we have a symbiotic relationship with them. So the more CO2, the more plants, sure, there may be some areas of the world that are going to get too hot, but other areas that were too cold will now be very perfect. The world is changing, and it's going to continue to change. Get used to it and stop trying to stop it. You know, it's kind of weird because I thought the progressives were all about change. Well, move with the changes and stop being so scared. Stop acting like you can do something with some kind of magic policy or invention that's just going to reverse all of this. Like, you can't stop Mother Nature from going through its cycles, and we're due for another cycle. The last warming period was the medieval warming period, and there was no fossil fuels being burned for that. What about the period before it and the several there? We'll pull up a graph in one of the later episodes, and we'll really break this down. But there's always these peaks and valleys in heat and cold, right? So if we did happen to as I think some of the climate change theorists like Bill Nye, the not so science guy, who doesn't have any degree in actually being a scientist. He's just like an engineer kind of guy who got on TV. Yeah, he believes that's all this stuff, and he said that we've heated the Earth so much that we've actually now avoided a mini ice age that was supposed to come. Well, fucking cool, man. Did you want us all to fucking freeze to death? Like, fuck off, all right? This is good. Maybe this is the whole part of the plan. Maybe there is a big plan. Maybe the Earth knows what it's doing when it created us, and it knew what we were going to do. As George Carlin likes to say, what if the sole reason of humanity to ever have been evolved on Earth was to produce plastic? Maybe the Earth just loves that stuff and it just gobbles it up, right? And it's like, yes, plastic, finally, right? This is our destiny. All right, that's a joke, taking it to an extreme, but honestly, we don't know. It's really silly when people act like they know what the Earth is and what this universe is and how it all works, because you don't. And the greatest geniuses admitted they didn't. So, once again, humility. We're all learning here. We're all trying to figure it out. Okay. So yeah, wow. So the power grid fails. Is this happening in other states? I think it is, but I know that in Texas, this is a thing now, apparently, with ERCOT, which is like, I'm starting to look at them like just this evil force or something, because man, I never heard their name really until recently. They're fairly new organization, if I'm correct. But the management of this of last year, so last year, in case you're unaware, we had what we call here in Texas the winter apocalypse, because we had this severe Arctic blast in February, and it came and it just knocked out our power grids, and me and everybody I know pretty much was out of power for about a week or so. It was kind of like on and off here and there for a few days, but at least for a couple days we had no power. And luckily I'm a little prepared. I was already getting into preparedness after the toilet paper outage in 2020 and all that kind of crazy stuff. That was when I started seeing empty shelves. Then I knew the conspiracy theorists were right, and I started listening to their advice and started packing and getting prepared. But I wasn't completely prepared, and that was definitely another wake up call there when the winter apocalypse hit us. So once again, just kind of showing you how you can't trust the government, you can't trust anybody to take care of yourself but yourself. So you need to have your house prepared. You need to have some kind of backup, at least some battery backups to keep your phones and other devices charged, and battery powered lights and anything battery powered, that kind of stuff. Travel and camping type gear, that stuff is good to have. Backup as far as food as well, food and water. The essentials, make sure you have the essentials covered before anything, because those, basic needs. Yeah, so getting into the story though here, so let me just pull up some articles. And this is all pretty new, actually. I wanted to try to stay current with this, so I have a couple older things, but some very new stuff here. Actually, just today in the Houston Chronicle. Let's pull this baby open here. So, an article by Mr. Tomlinson. Fact-checking the GOP's false claims about wind power and Texans worrying about broken grid. So, the Texas electric grid is broken and undoubtedly needs more generation, but in a bid to boost the fossil fuel industry over renewable sources, Republican officials are employing lies, damned lies, and statistics. Oh, those damn statistics, how they lie, right? The dirty tricks are expected in an election year and when billions of dollars are at stake. Texans are reminded of the 2021 blackouts every time the Electric Reliability Council of Texas, ERCOT, calls for conservation or asks businesses to shut down operations. People are angry that hundreds of people died due to a faulty grid. Yeah, kind of a big deal. So here's Tomlinson's take. Electricity bills are so high, you may wish for a blackout. Okay, that's dumb. No one wants to spend 105-degree afternoon without air conditioning. Okay, we can agree on that. The current forecast suggests the worst is yet to come for the grid as temps remain high and generation struggles to keep up. Savvy politicians want to focus on the popular anger of their opponents. GOP elected officials appear determined to make wind energy the boogaloo while promoting natural gas as a savior. In fact, the opposite is true. Railroad Commissioner Wayne Christian's State Senate Louise Corkhorst and State Rep Jared Patterson have been declaring wind energy a failure based on how much power they produce on a hot afternoon compared to the nameplate capacity. For example, last week between the hours of 3 p.m. and 4 p.m., wind was only expected to produce 12% of its installed capacity compared to the thermal sources producing 84% of its installed capacity. The fossil fuel industry shills say that this demonstrates wind energy's failure. But this is tantamount to expecting solar power plants to produce electricity at 2 a.m. Well, nobody's saying that either. People living in West Texas have known for millennia that the air is often still on the sunny summer afternoons. No one ever suggested wind would meet peak demand in the summer, but it blows like the dickens at night and the rest of the year. From January to June, wind provides 30% of the state's power compared to 38% of conventional and combined cycled natural gas facilities, according to ERCOT's data. Coal provides 17%, nuclear 10%, and solar 6%. Do you know it would be more reliable and cheaper than a natural gas power plant in the summer? A solar plant. Unlike natural gas plant, which can generate close to 100% of nameplate capacity on demand no matter whatever no one ever suggested a wind facility would operate at 100%. And this is supposed to be convincing me that it's the way to go. Texas wind generators typically operate at around 40% capacity, according to the U.S. Energy Information Administration. To expect more is to be dishonest. Well, I'm glad we're not being dishonest now. Disclosure time. I've been writing about climate change and clean energy since my undergraduate thesis in 1992, and my wife has worked on clean energy for more than 20 years, developing projects of all kinds around the globe. Today, she provides her expertise in international private equity firm. I have never, nor will I ever, write about a company or project in which my wife or her employer has an interest. If you think my columns are about clean energy affect the industry's profitability more generally, you have an exaggerated sense of my influence. Texas frequently. Okay, so that's kind of a funny little disclosure there, though, because what he said that, just because I don't pick on any specific company, that shows that I'm not shilling for green energy or renewable energy companies, right? Even though my wife works for them. And okay, yeah, sure, buddy. Fossil fuel companies know if they don't get new projects built soon, they will never happen. Energy company employees and political action committees are the biggest donors to Texas Republicans, and they expect protection. Texas Democrats and environmentalists, meanwhile, exaggerate the short-term potential of clean energy resources and negative impact of natural gas. Oh my God! Well, thank you for being a little bit honest here. I mean, the title of this headline is just completely opposite of what I just read right here in that last line. In fact, maybe that should be the title, but we'll read on. Several studies have shown that ERCOT can add more wind and solar to the grid, but once you get above 50% level, things get complicated. Meaning we can't do renewables to the degree that people think we can. We can only get to about 50%, and they actually already said over there that we were at 40 something. We're pretty close already. We really can't do much more. Offshore wind in the Gulf of Mexico could provide power on hot summer days, but it remains expensive. Yeah, and I see those damn turbine wings driving by all the time. Those things are constantly getting broke, constantly having to get replaced, and they're massive. They're like the size of like at least like two 18-wheelers or so, maybe more. I mean, they are ridiculously long. So let's see here. Tomlinson's take: if Texas's electric grid operator wants energy conservation, it should pay more for it. ERCOT does not need to add more natural gas power plants for the hours when the wind slows before the sun has fully risen, and when the sun sets while the wind is weak. We also need natural gas backup plants for when it's still and dark. Okay, yeah, exactly. A little bit of logic leaking in here once again. Kind of weird that your solution always goes against your logic there. It's like you're almost figuring it out, but then you just got to edit the answer to remain in lockstep with your party. Scientists have enough weather data to accurately calculate the right mix, but Texas has chosen to allow supply and demand curves to drive these decisions. We would be wise to draw from both science and market forces to guarantee reliability. Let's see here. But not as much as some would suggest. Lastly, Republicans and Democrats are justified in decrying how subsidies distort Texas' energy market. All forms of generation receive government subsidies, and I've frequently called for eliminating all of them. We need an all-of-the-above strategy informed by climate science and pragmatism. What we don't need is more disinformation from state officials and politicians designed to benefit their campaign donors. Okay, so I mean, he ends on a good note. Overall, I'll give the guy a decent grade for the article because he's obviously of a different political persuasion. But I can read the article and get some facts, and he injects his idea in the title and in a few little spots here that throughout where he kind of tries to say that adding more gas is not going to help. Yet, he admits that wind and solar can't run efficiently during the peak heat hours, like what we're experiencing right now. So, he says pretty much what I say, which is that, yeah, like, let's do both. I hate this division again where it's like, oh, it's got to be solar or it's got to be renewables or natural gas, one or the other. This is not the way. The way is a holistic way. You use everything. You use everything when it's necessary. So yes, have your wind and solar. Let's do as much of that as we can. Of course, we want to save the environment as much as we possibly humanly can. We want clean air. We want clean water. We want a clean earth. Nobody wants a dirty, polluted earth. But passing that down onto us consumers, just the little people who are struggling to get by as it is, especially with Biden inflation, you can't expect us to be the ones to foot this bill either. You know, like y'all, the the people, the companies with all the money, they need to make the conversions on their own, and they've been, and it's necessity drives invention. That's how this works. I remember I got very impatient about all this whenever I was when I was in like elementary school, and they indoctrinated me, and then I went through more grade school, and they put this stuff in your head that it's like your fault, and they make you feel really bad about it, and then you go home and bitch at your parents about it, and they're kind of like, whatever. And they're right for it because they know that it's like, it's not their fault. This is somebody else's fault. And like my dad would tell me too, it's like, if this is the way, if it works out, well, it's going to happen naturally as the market shifts, as renewables become more and more appealing monetarily and just environmentally, consciously, then people will want to invest their money more and more into those companies, and that industry will grow and it'll become more robust. And the fossil fuel industry will be forced to make adjustments, which they are. And so it's just a natural process. You let the market run itself. Once the demand of oil is, once it gets too expensive, and these other energies are the cheaper method, or mainly really what needs to happen is once the renewables can get driven down in cost, then you would definitely see. But it's basically that balancing act of, what's cheaper and what's going to work more efficiently. Because efficiency is in the economics that all these oil companies are working out as well. They want to be efficient. They don't want to just burn oil and ruin the environment and not get the bang for their buck. They're trying to conserve as well. And they, again, they have families too that they don't want growing up in a trash environment. So I just thought that was a great article that just came out today, by Chris Tomlinson from the Houston Chronicle. And the only thing I would probably change, Mr. Tomlinson, is instead of the headline, fact-checking the GOP's false claims about the wind power as Texans worry about broken grid, I would just change GOP to GND, Green New Deal. Because the Green New Deal has a lot of false claims that like wind power could possibly like fix this problem, and it can't. As you admit in your article, we're already at like 40% with wind, and the rest of that half is taken up by some of the other renewables. So we're already about like half the renewables. Here we are again. Wind provided 30% rather, while 38% comes from conventional combined cycled natural gas. But and then coal 17%. Nuclear 10%, and solar 6%, just again to give you those numbers. But yeah, so it's like we're already at that point, as it mentions later in the article, that like it gets too convoluted and it doesn't work very efficiently. Once you get to around 50% of the energy grid being run by these renewables, things get complicated, as he says. So that's not going to work, increasing the green, all right? That's precisely what his article insinuates would be the answer, is to go more green. And in fact, in his article, he proves our point. He disproves his own point and shows how actually we need more natural gas generators ready to go in the summertime, because that's when wind is not blowing very hard. So, debunked once again. And so that was an easy one. Yeah, I did enjoy this one comment I saw in there too, so it kind of inspired what I had to say. He said, the headline of the story should have been, Texas Democrats exaggerate the short-term potential of clean energy resources and the negative impact of natural gas, which is actually a line straight from the article. Yeah. So, deception there, once again from the left. Not surprising. Supreme Court curbs EPA's power to limit greenhouse gas emissions. Man, this is big news. I am really surprised that I've not heard anybody talk about this. This was June 30th, 2022, so about a little over half a month ago, I guess, almost a month ago, we had this massive Supreme Court ruling about EPA. A group of red states and coal companies contested a federal appeals court decision that said the EPA could issue regulations on greenhouse gases. So, maybe we'll play that one for you.
The Supreme Court, by a 6-3 vote, has ruled that the Environmental Protection Agency does not have broad authority to try to set national energy policy by encouraging industries to switch to cleaner sources of power generation like wind and solar. This is a 6-3 ruling. The Supreme Court says that Congress did not give the EPA that broad authority, that the EPA's authority is limited more to trying to restrict emissions from specific coal-burning power plants. Now, this goes back to a tussle between the Obama and Trump administrations. The Obama administration had proposed a much broader clean air program for the EPA that would encourage industries to switch to cleaner sources. The Trump administration trimmed that back, and the question for the Supreme Court is, how broad is the EPA's authority? And the answer from the Supreme Court today is not broad at all. And the court has gone on to say that this is what is called a major question. And this has been a darling of conservatives, the idea that federal agencies, when they set regulations that would change policy in a broad way, that's a major question, and that they can't do that unless they have authority from Congress to act. So this decision is not only something that will restrict the EPA's authority going forward, but also may have implications for other federal agencies who want to undergo regulatory changes that the court feels are beyond what Congress has allowed them to do.
Okay. All right. Let me stop this garbage news from coming back on. Okay. Well, you heard the man. So, they didn't seem too happy about that. I am, honestly, because I am the most green guy you know. I recycle more than you do, probably. I wash out almost every plastic piece of utensil or whatever that I get from containers that I get from the store. I wash them out and I put them in the recycle. I'm always sorting them, trying to do my best to sort them. They don't even take half the stuff. You got to bring your plastic bags to the store and to a special recycle spot there. They make it very hard for you actually to be a recycler. And I strongly encourage somebody to form a business that consolidates all of the recycling duties and sorts that somehow. That'd be great. That would make a big change in people's ability to recycle. But yeah, so I mean, that's what I think. I think there's so many ways that, top down, you could actually fix this problem without making civilian life hell. Because honestly, it's pretty psychotic that I sit there and sort through plastic garbage and just to try to lower my carbon footprint, as it were. It's really mainly I just don't like pollution. I don't like contributing to that. I want to do as best as I can, but it's ridiculous and it's a bit psychotic, and I shouldn't have to do that. My local government should have this worked out already to where I just maybe clean it off, but I shouldn't have to try to sort through what kind of plastic you can handle. You need a machine or a crew of people who can do that. Come on, get it together. I'm starting to think maybe I need to start running things here. I feel like I got better ideas than they do. I don't know what's the problem. Maybe they're just not effective and they need, a good leader, somebody who's going to fire the people who are sucking at their job and then promote the people who can actually get shit done. Because shit's not getting done and it needs to get done. Society is collapsing. I don't know if you noticed, politicians. I know the people notice because we're living it. But y'all guys are failing us at every end, and y'all need to work together. Republicans and Democrats, I don't care. Y'all guys are getting on everybody's nerves. Nobody likes y'all because y'all can't get anything done. So work together and figure it out. Supply energy at affordable, livable rate to everybody who is connected to the grid. What are we paying for? What are our taxes going towards? Let's see here. Let's check out another one. So that was a good one. So I mean that's an interesting article, though. I want to just point that out, though, that so there's that battle that's been going on with the EPA, and can they regulate us? And it's actually something interesting that I found in my research here. Actually, I'll just go ahead and pull this up from the comptroller.texas.gov economy fiscal notes from 2020. And so, I mean, I believe this is as current as it gets, because this is what I found when I looked it up, and they haven't updated this page, but it would seem to corroborate with what the reporter was saying there about like the Trump era stuff, that this is probably in limbo ever since 2020 then. Let's see here. I'm just kind of reading here. Power demand and COVID-19. You know, they always like to, they got to inject their little COVID. More like COVID. I'm going to have to start saying it like a different way. I don't want them to keep censoring my videos. So it's just kind of funny here. Like they're talking about ERCOT began monitoring load impacts directly related to COVID in March 2020. And this writing, okay, who cares? What did I wanted to tell you? Well, what I wanted to tell you about this, now I can't seem to find it. Give me a second. Well, here's an interesting little passage. Weather conditions, particularly Texas's triple-digit summers, are a huge factor in predicting demand, since about half of Texas's peak energy use comes from air conditioning. You think? ERCOT expects record-breaking electricity use again in the summer of 2020, even after the economic. Okay, so yeah, so they're always predicting this. It's like, yeah, they know. You guys know. So turn the gas plants on. You know, it's like turn the frickin' gas on when the summer comes in, before the summer comes in. Be ready for it. You know these patterns. These are not irregular patterns. I've seen graphs, and the heat waves are pretty consistent with the last decade. It's just stupidity. It's very frustrating. ERCOT sucks. I know that a couple of them like stepped down after the winter apocalypse, but they all need to step down. We need fresh blood in there. We need something new. We need somebody who can get shit done. Greg Abbott needs to get shit done or get out. You know, this is embarrassing, really, for Texas in so many ways, and especially for the GOP. It is kind of embarrassing, I have to say, because this is happening on the GOP's watch, and like Beto O'Rourke is all like nipping at Greg Abbott's arse like a angry little terrier, and and he's got a point. It's like, man, you're failing here. Look at you. It's just, yeah, when you're getting bitch slapped by Robert Francis O'Rourke, the fake Latino, trying to appeal to me, a real half Latino. Yeah, it's kind of annoying. Get it together, folks, before El Beto has you has you in his clutches. You know, he came pretty close last time. Whew. So let's see here. Let's take a look at this article here, TexasTribune.org. How to know the difference between a local power outage and rolling blackouts. Okay, I was just reading about the rolling blackouts and stuff. This is kind of not very interesting, though. And then I had this CNN article that what did I see in here that was of value? Very little, I'm sure. Texas produces more power than any other state. Here is why it went dark anyway. And that was posted last year during the winter apocalypse. So, oh yeah, this was just kind of an interesting note, because they're pointing out how much energy, that we both create and consume. We're the number one in the nation in both. We're also number one in natural gas, oil, and wind. And yeah, so I mean, to say that we're not green enough is ridiculous. We're at green capacity. All right, that's the point. That's the research and the science of the day. We are at capacity with the green stuff, with the wind, or at least near it, and it's not going to help us through this. That's the main point. Natural gas is the way through. Sorry, the good old gas burning plant. We need new ones. Yeah, we need some extra ones to replace the old ones, because the old ones are falling apart a bit, and they, when people use those, there's potential for more maintenance problems, because old shit breaks all the time. And there was an article I had here that talked about that. That's what I was looking for, but I can't find it. If I find it, I'll pop it in there. But I mean, I'm sure you can confirm that in any way. I mean, that's a pretty logical statement to make, right? So yeah, we either need to invest in newer, at least updating the natural gas facilities, because we need more of them. We need more up-to-date natural gas. That's the answer. Sorry, and that's the answer that you even get from the screaming leftist on the Houston Chronicle. I mean, whose wife has green energy interests and business. So they may frame their headlines a certain way because they know that most people just look at headlines and don't actually read the article. But if you read the article, it completely bashes his point, and it makes mine. It makes the right wing's point, as you would say. So I mean, this is going to be an ongoing topic on this show until this ever gets settled. But the green energy movement, like the Green New Deal, it's a con. Okay, and that's coming from somebody who's big into green energy, into renewables, and into all of this stuff. Solar, wind, I love it. Hydro, geothermal, nuclear, which most people, I think, understand that nuclear is pretty much the way out of all of this if we really wanted to, solve these problems. But we'll research a little bit more of that before we talk about it. That is the nuclear subject. But I did want to offer you, just if you're kind of one of the people who've still not been exposed really to this idea that man-made climate change is not necessarily this huge, deathly impact on the environment. And in fact, our research shows that we have an effect minuscule at best. And a great place to start is, here's an article from Forbes in 2011, and you could if you just research ClimateGate, that'll probably bring up a lot of what you need to find out. So this was ClimateGate 2.0. This was already after the first ClimateGate, when a bunch of emails came out that showed climatologists emails to each other where they're fudging the math, and it's quite obvious. I mean, they are blatantly saying like, oh, you need to change that doesn't look good, that doesn't fit the agenda. And of course, they came back and said, oh, those were cherry-picked. But, you still said it, and it's not, it's cherry-picked to show the truth. So this was after that. This was after a second leak. And it was just insane that this stuff gets out, and then it just gets forgotten, So I like to kind of come back to some of these older articles. Let's see here. The original ClimateGate emails contain similar evidence of destroying information and data that the public would naturally assume would be available according to the Freedom of Information principles. Here's a quote from one of those emails. Mike, can you delete any emails you may have had with Keith Briffa? Re AR4, UN Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change Fourth Assessment, ? Unquote. So, Jones wrote to Penn State University scientist Michael Mann in an email released in ClimateGate 1.0, quote, Keith will do likewise. We will be getting Casper Amon to do likewise. I see that CA, the Climate Audible website, claim that they discovered the 1945 problem in the Nature paper, unquote. So the emails also reveal the scientists' attempt to politicize the debate and advance predetermined outcomes. Quote, the trick may be to decide on the main message and use that to guide what's included and what's left out. Of IPCC reports, writes Jonathan Overpeck, coordinating lead author for the IPCC's most recent climate assessment. Quote, I gave up on Georgia Institute of Technology climate professor Judith Curry a while ago. I don't know what she thinks she's doing, but it's not helping the cause, wrote Mann in another newly released email. Quote, I have been talking with folks in the States about finding an investigative journalist to investigate and expose. Skeptical scientist Steve McIntyre Mann writes in another newly released email. So, and it goes on and on. I mean, you should definitely check out this article. I'll link it. And yeah, if you thought that these scientists were not compromised and that they weren't pushing an agenda that they knew was fake, well, you were wrong. And here's more evidence, and there's tons of it. Like I said, just hashtag or search ClimateGate. You will find it all. Here's another good one, though. Oh, and by the way, I also made note of the guy who wrote this article, because it's an amazing, just like mind-opening article if you're not aware of this information. It's by James Taylor. He is the president of the Spark of Freedom Foundation. So just in case you're trying to say like, oh, this guy who wrote this article, who cares what he says, well, let's look at, Spark of Freedom. The Spark of Freedom Foundation aims to influence public policy by promoting free markets, affordable energy, and common sense energy and environmental solutions. Okay, so this guy's got his head screwed on straight. And if you read about him, I mean, he's the president. He's been on like all these other kind of boards and things, promotes affordable, abundant energy founded in conservative economic principles and a common ground approach. He earned a BA in government and studied economics and atmospheric science at Dartmouth College. Sounds like he knows what he's talking about when it comes to climate, right? I mean, do you have a degree like that? He obtained his JD from Syracuse University College of Law. He has presented environmental analysis on CNN Headline News, CBS Evening News, MSNBC, Fox News Channel, and several national radio programs. He has personally advised presidential candidates, governors, and state legislators on energy and environmental issues. The dude knows his shit, okay? That's what I'm getting at. Do you know your shit? Do you know your shit as good as James Taylor? I doubt it. I highly, highly doubt it if you disagree. And I would say if you disagree, you are probably a climate hoax shill. I'm going to have to come up with a good term for you guys. Maybe that'll work for now. The Great Global Warming Swindle. You've got to see this documentary if you've never seen it. I'll link that. It was definitely caused a lot of controversy. It was a UK program. I believe it was on like PBS or something like that. It premiered in 2007. On the British Channel 4. Yeah, so British television producer Martin Durkin argues against the virtually unchallenged consensus that global warming is man-made. So it's just a great thing, man. Like, I downloaded this off of YouTube, I think, because this is important information that you don't want it getting deleted off someday once, the communists decide that this is information is no longer viable for consumption by the masses. This will get deleted, I'm sure. So make sure you're backing up some of the information you're finding as well. I recommend that. Plus, you'll get to watch it when the power goes down, when they shut down your grid and you're sweating or freezing in your home during some extreme climate catastrophe, you will have videos to show your family of like, this is how we got here. This is how the collapse happened. This is how the globalists and the socialists took over and pushed us towards these green economics that did not work and caused power grid failures. Because make no mistake, if everything was running off of petro, the power would be running just fine. Nobody would be asked to turn down their ACs. You wouldn't have any rolling blackouts like you're seeing all over the nation. This isn't just Texas, too. I want to point that out. A lot of people try to make fun of us right now because we're on our own grid. Trust me, once we get some of these jackasses in charge out of the way, having our own grid is going to be vital. It's going to be one of the best decisions Texas ever made. The more we can get away from depending on the union, trust me, we're gonna be happy about it. We just got to get it all worked out. And yeah, I don't know who needs an ass whooping, who needs to get kicked out, man. But yeah, seems like a manageable thing that even Democrats like the guy from the Houston Chronicle wrote about. Like we agree 100% on the solution. It's like, yes, use both, use them when needed, have the gas ready to go, use the solar and wind when you can, right? Let's use the resources that are available. It's logical. It's not rocket science. And it's definitely not rocket science for them, for ERCOT or whoever's running your energy in your area to figure that out. We really got to start doing something here. I guess we got to start voting a lot more in these local elections. If these commissioners and people can't get this figured out, they need to get the hell out of the way, man. And we need to get competent people in there who can organize things and not leave us high and dry. It's very infuriating when you think about it, like especially last year, to think that people died because of the incompetence of ERCOT. This is and their lack of winterizing the wind turbines, for one thing. That was obviously a big part of it. So that was stupid and cheap. But they also cheaped out on the petro stuff too. I mean, on the natural gas, they had plants that could have been turned on. They weren't turned on because they're idiots. And if they did, perhaps some of that would have failed because they've cheaped out on updating and maintaining the facilities to where they're not volatile to breaking down. These companies are making plenty of money. So yeah, I mean, we need to find a way to get them out of business if they're not going to do the public good. And it seems like actually because of the way the Texas system is, there's, from what I was reading, part of this separate energy grid thing is kind of cool because it allows different companies to come up and produce their own energy and then just start and so anybody, basically, from what I understand, if you have a way, a source, you can produce energy and sell it. So if you want to build a solar farm, build it and start selling your energy. Become the next solar tycoon, right? Like, and that's what I don't get either. It's like if this stuff is so good, if it's going to work, then why isn't there a robber baron coming in to try to monopolize the market? I mean, I guess you got Elon Musk. You could say he's the robber baron of the time, or the job generator and the person moving society forward is probably a better way to characterize them. But all of them, of course, are trying to make money too. So if it's not profitable, that's probably why. So there's got to be incentive. It's got to actually work. It's got to be economical. Why would we try to do something that's not efficient, right? So it's got to be efficient in every way. But I just think that's crazy. Obviously, if there's not tons of cutthroat capitalists getting into this market and making solar available to everybody and everyone, then maybe there is a problem with this whole idea. Maybe we are maxed out. Nuclear isn't maxed out, and oil and gas not maxed out. So put the shit on the line. Stop fucking around. Stop killing people with your ignorance and your stupidity, okay? We're tired of this shit. Greg Abbott, I have a message for you. Burn, baby, burn! Burn that oil. burn that coal, burn that natural gas. We need it. We need it right now. People are suffering. Seriously, though. That's going to keep people from dying and from heat exhaustion. And then you don't have to have these silly, like, I thought this was interesting too. Maybe I'll kind of bring it back here to the notes. We have, so you got otherwise, if you don't do this, if you don't turn the gas back on, you're going to have rolling blackouts like they're having in other states as well. It's a nationwide simultaneous rollout of this crap of like cooling centers, actually, that I've seen. This is popping up all around the nation. And this is kind of a thing now. It's like, oh, well, it's so hot out. Come to these, public spaces and cool off. So that's the relief they're offering you. They can run their energy in cooling centers, but you need to turn your AC off, all right, during peak heat hours. Unbelievable, just unbelievable. Such a slap in the face, like such tyranny, such just unbelievable behavior. And people just go along with it. Green is a con. We'll get more into that, but coal and petro runs the electric car chargers. Let's not forget that there's a lot of, any of your electric car chargers, if it's not hooked up directly to a solar farm, it's probably running off of gas, mostly, or at least half. And then I guess that's about it. That's about it for today. I mean, that's a mouthful. I have more things. There's so much going on, so trust me, there's more episodes coming up soon. But I will also end with perhaps just the idea about weather modification. I'm sure some of you have heard of HARP, but if not, look into it. Weather modification is real. It's been something that the government has been experimenting with for decades, that they've told us about, which means it's probably been a lot longer than they've told us about. You really should look into this stuff, because I'm starting to think, like, I don't know, I'm not sure how they're pulling this off, but a lot of this heat wave stuff, I mean, I believe that it could just be the heat, okay? It doesn't have to be any kind of like supernatural or weird explanation, but it could be, though. All right, let's also not completely be closed-minded again and say like, oh, well, it's definitely not these other things. It's got to be, the most basic answer, that it's just too damn hot out, right? And it is hot out there. I mean, I'll tell you what, I need like a nuclear powered snow cone machine or something when I go out there, man. It's hot. But HARP has been the public face of weather modification for a long time, and I guarantee you they have other high frequency active aurora research programs that they're just not telling us about, which that's what HARP stands for. It's definitely going on, all right? And China has actually even, maybe we'll look some stuff up about that in a future episode, but I know that I've seen that China has definitely been playing with weather modification. What are we doing about that? Are we just letting China figure out how to modify the weather, or are we doing that too? Oh, I guarantee you we're doing it too, and we've been, and I'm pretty sure we've probably perfected a few techniques by now. Once you really start understanding how simple the dynamics of weather is, it's simple yet complex. All right, obviously they can't even predict the weather a couple days because it's so complex because of chaos. But the physics of why things happen are pretty well known. We understand what causes a storm. We understand what dissipates a storm. We can create scenarios with satellites and things. We can create areas of heat or pressure, that in a localized area. I mean, that is easily conceivable. By now, if you don't think that they have some kind of ray gun or laser that they can shoot from a satellite that can produce at least some level of heat on the surface here, I mean, you lack imagination and context and history. It's possible, okay? It's very possible that somebody is heating certain areas, perhaps, to get a desired effect. And I think you can also do the reverse of that, probably. But, we'll look into that some more. There's just some ideas there. I'm just kind of spitballing here. I'm not sure if or what's going on, but I know what's possible. And I know these people are pretty evil and devious who seem to be running things because they're doing evil, devious things that are causing people to die. And they continue to do it, and it just seems like this is the direction. This is the direction of the Biden admin, is to kill all your opponents and anyone who does not comply, and perhaps kill some of your supporters on the way. Who cares? We need to depopulate, right? Hey, but also just another little quick reminder: the Georgia Guidestones got bombed or somehow exploded or crashed a couple weeks ago, I guess now. That was funny. Yeah, screw your whole idea of depopulation. How about you guys depopulate? Yeah, that's what I think. That's what I think y'all need to do. Lead by example and depopulate. That's the way to go. Abort all babies of your kin and kill yourselves, because you are the problem. You're the carbon that you're trying to get rid of, because we are the carbon they are trying to get rid of. We are carbon-based life forms, and carbon is not the enemy. All right? Just use some logic. Just think about it. All right? Okay. We're going to come back very soon with a special guest, Anat Ronan, a local muralist and amazing artist from Houston. And we're going to talk about a lot of things. We're going to talk about just some of the shenanigans in the Houston art scene, but we're also going to talk about some of the bias and deranged leftist lunacy that we've had to endure just for speaking our mind about all the silliness of 2020 going forward. Today's episode is brought to you by .506, clothing for the mind. Have you ever been in class and, there was just somebody really sexy of the persuasion that you are attracted to, and you wanted to say something, but you didn't know what to say? Well, that's where .506 got you covered. Literally. Just glance at your shirt and take note, and use it as a cue card to spark something up. Hey, what's up with them strange attractors anyway, right? Why are they so strange? Pardon me? Oh, you know what I'm talking about, right? Hey, baby. Okay. Well, we'll do a different cut for that. Okay. Well, thank you so much for tuning in, and signing out for now. We'll talk to you soon. Like and subscribe, and please share this vital info.